you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there are ladies things that makes official. Welcome to 16 years and 28 episodes of the Chris Voss Show. And we just keep bringing the most smartest, wonderful guests with the greatest stories in the world on the show. Please refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and go to Facebook.com/Chris Voss. Today we have an amazing young man on the show. His first book is killing it, and it is out now. You can take and pick it up wherever fine books are sold. It's called Chromaria by Clayton Demera. And we're going to get into it with him, find out what this book is about, and some of the things that he has pending that sound really cool. Clayton is a father of two, always had a passion for storytelling while attempting to create a digital asset. He rekindled his creative fire and embarked on writing his greatest creation yet. This book marks the beginning of an exciting series with 7 more installments to follow. Balancing family and life and his love for writing, he crafts compelling narratives that capture readers of all ages. Welcome to the show, Clayton. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Give us any .coms, websites, social media, wherever you want people to find you on the internet, please.
Pretty much, if you just search Chromaria, the laundry list will show up all through Google. For you to order the first installment of the book, that's the place to go to kind of begin the journey.
Begin the journey, folks, with 7 more installments to follow. So it's an 8 installment series, book series?
Yeah. So the story, when you begin the first story, it kind of encapsulates the whole world. And then from there, it branches off into inside the book, there's 7 different tribes. So there would be a book explaining each tribe into more detail.
And so what was the, you said you were maybe doing some different technology stuff. What was the component that made you finally want to write this book? And what was the origin of the story maybe?
It's really funny. So I have somewhat of a finance background, and a couple of years ago, if you remember what NFTs were, they came out on the Ethereum, and they were like pictures people could buy. Well, they came out around 23 for the Bitcoin blockchain, and I found them, and I was like, wow, so you can just make a picture and it can be worth something. And so assuming it was that simple, I do it and nothing happened. And so I sat there and said, well, I wonder if you have to actually have a narrative, you have to create a story. And so from there I was like, well, I could have this creation have a story with it. And so I started to think of the hero's journey, the 3-act plays, how those work. And it ended up just becoming so much bigger than where it originally came from, that it just became into this book, but its origin story is kind of like a hilarious place it came from.
We've got a whole, there's probably, 100 books on the Chris Voss Show guest list that we did back then on NFTs and how great they're going to the future.
Right. And what's funny is I was thinking before this interview that if I had you guess, you could guess 1,000 ways and you would never guess that that's where the idea would have been spawned from.
That's true.
And but it really helped my dynamic of going back to a creative past in my childhood and really opening up this idea. And then it just expanded. It just grew to a point where some more things came from it. So it's really been a cool ride.
And when did you write the book and get it published?
It was published in 2025. I want to say around April. And I used American Publishing. They've been fantastic holding my hand, throughout the whole process. Whereas my background had never really been about writing. And so that was a whole new endeavor to experience what that world really looked like. And so I was kind of new to it, but it's been fantastic so far. So I really enjoyed it.
Did you write when you were young? Was there ever time in your life where you kind of had a inkling that, well, maybe I'm a writer?
That's a funny question. So when I was younger, I did. They used to actually publish your books in elementary school when I was young.
Really?
You could write like a story and they
Really?
get like the stamp of approval. And it was super cool. And I remember I had a friend ask me, gosh, about a decade ago, like, hey, do you still write stories? And I it always kind of stuck with me. And I was like, no, I don't, you know? And so when this kind of came about, that's where the rekindling came from. It was like, oh, I can actually create a whole story. And I think one of the cool parts of it is, for me, when I was working on it, like I didn't know where I was going to get at to the end. I was kind of working through it on like walks with my dog. I'd kind of think about it. And the thought came to me that I'm the only one in the world that knows the end. You know, there's no computer system that can figure it out. There's no one. So I hold this gate to this world, and it just made it so much more realistic and so much more cool to experience.
So tell us more about the characters in the book. Who are the protagonists and stuff like that?
Yeah, so the book is based on a world that's created by a creator that creates the world, and he creates 7 different tribes. The 7 different tribes are given specific covenants to follow, to work together. And as long as they work together, the harmony is established. Everything's okay. Through time, though, some of the covenants are broken and are disregarded. And what ends up happening is there's a rainbow covenant that allows all the 7 tribes to know that the creator gave this to them and it's his gift, but they end up worshiping the rainbow itself, because that's where when you die, you actually return to. So they worship the rainbow and not the creator, kind of like worshiping the gift and not the giver scenario. And through the book, there's a act of conflict that's introduced. And the point of conflict is given to the tribes to select whether or not they'll be righteous or rebellious through this choice. And the characters, there's a 2 dynamic character where there's a dad, there's 2 dads, 2 sons. And they're a part of the conflict is one of the son's fathers, he loses his life, and the other one, that father loses his son, and they both take a separate role in the book. And you get to follow their paths of how they end up to where they end up, depending on the decisions they make, based off of the alteration the creator gave to the world, based on how things went as far as creation and the change when it went from what they were actually supposed to be focusing on and lost their way.
Oh, wow. Worshipping the rainbow. Isn't that just Skittles? Oh, I'm just kidding. I had to get that joke in there. So what sort of genre would you call this? Like fantasy or, kind of Tolkien sort of stuff? Or
I think, a lot of people take it more of, they lean more fantasy. And then there's also this lean to more of like a Christian kind of focus, because it's the world's created by a creator. There's a rainbow covenant. So there are aspects of righteousness and rebellion, good and evil. But I really wanted to dig into that feeling of when someone passes away in a book. It kind of reminded me of the never ending story when Atreyu loses his horse. And I'm like, I've told my sons, when they've both watched it, they're like, it's a really traumatic scene for kids to see, but it was it really moved you when you were a kid that wow, you can lose things you love. And it the hero had to continue on. And so I think that's really important with my book, is that it's a focus on which direction does the hero take and which direction does the villain take, and what is based on that, what is fueling their directional path in the book.
Mm-hmm. And seeing in the future for 8 different books and stuff, that's quite a lot of work to see the future of. Some authors, when we interview them, they're just going book by book. What gives you that vision and confidence in your storyline and everything else? And I'm kind of asking that because a lot of writers or wannabe writers are listening to the show.
Yeah, no problem. So how I looked at the additional books are based on further development of characters that are in the first book. So you have there's a girl from the Blue Tribe. Her name's Udo. She plays a key role with Manu and with the son that loses the father, and exploring more about where her tribe originated, how the creator created her tribe. We get it. We dial it down. How the creator created her tribe. What type of covenants did that certain tribe follow? And then where does it get to her? So how does she find Manu? How does it end up getting there? And each interaction in the book with a different tribe has a specific main character. And so how my writing looked at it was, we can base the next book. When I say we, I just mean me, but how I look at it is okay, the next book can be based on this character, and we can take a dynamic of their tribe and what they do well, and we can build a story based on that. And so I just one of the things I follow, I really like to follow, like I said, is a 3-act play. and a hero's journey. Like how does the walk go, and how do you get to where you want to get to? And so that's how they're all based.
Wow, and that should be awesome. They probably develop there from all the characters. Maybe you have a whole 8 series, maybe, or something, huh?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just how amazing one's imagination can be. You can really, when you can create a world that you own in your mind, and you can continue to create it and create this universe that you can have others interact with.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do your characters come to you? Like some authors will say that their characters stalk them and drive them crazy and demand that they write stuff down for them. Some people, they've got to do maybe some work in putting the characters together and keeping them active.
That's a good question. I think my characters are more or less based on probably a combination of like things I've grown up to experience, where not just throwing my age out there, but coming from like the analog world to the digital world, watching movies, playing, the growth of video games. You get a lot of stories that were given to you throughout your life. And there are places that you can kind of compartmentalize those character roles and those ideas. Cause there are great stories you can pinpoint and take things from and say, hey, this character he reminds me of this person. This villain reminds me of this person. What would a creator look like? And I just kind of sit there and think about it. A lot of it had to do with what their tribe was too. So like, for example, like the blue tribe was based off, it controls the waters, it helps to develop the land through that. Green tribe, develops the vegetation. Red works with animals. And so they all kind of work together, and that's where the harmony is established. And so you could just kind of, for me, it was more of a foundational thing of where does everything get created from? Like, what is their purpose, is their tribe? And then what would that character look like that I'd want to develop?
It's quite interesting how folks develop their characters, their plots, their subplots, and all that sort of good stuff. And did it come fairly easily to you when you developed all this, or did it take quite a time to kind of learn the ropes and develop these things and get feedback maybe from other people?
I think, to be honest, how I was going to bring it all together was probably the most difficult thing writing the book. I was really good at establishing everything, bringing it to a climatic moment and writing it through, kind of being the rebirth and reborn feeling. But it actually came to me walking my dog one morning, and I just got so excited. I was like, I got it. I have to go write it down. And I recommend anybody who writes books to write down your ideas, because you will forget them. And and there's been things I've forgotten where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't remember that. But I ran home and said, oh, this will be great. And I wrote it down. And I just kind of that's when I said, I was like, I have the end. And it was like, I own this magical thing. And it was just really a great moment for me on that.
Well, now I can finally tell my tech friends there was something good that came out of NFTs, the whole NFT craze. I mean, I knew it was going to fail. I mean, I'm just like, wait, we're owning things again? I thought we were always, we disassembled the society where instead of owning things, we just rent it. Like I used to have a huge record CD, 4,000 or 5,000 CDs collection, right? And then eventually I had to just go, well, I guess owning things is stupid now. So I guess it's all on Spotify or Qobuz or Apple. And so I'll just sell all this crap, and why keep it around? Well, now I wish I hadn't.
It's interesting. And again, it was just a weird rabbit hole of oh, I have this. What's this?
Oh, it had so much.
Apparently a craze for this.
It has so much juice. We have people that writing books about the NFT craze. And I remember the last one guy that we had on, these are wonderful folks. But it was clear by the time his book got published, because it was with the big publishers, and they take about a year from the final edit to get it published. And by the time I got it published, I did the interview, and I was just sitting there thinking in my head, I'm like, dude, this is the worst that you got this book that's come out right at the tail end of everyone's seen it's a fail at this point.
And you saw that as a financial background. You saw that with watching Bitcoin, it had cycles. It went through. Coinbase, I think IPO'd at the top, and so it's always was a joke in banking. Everybody bought that at $400 a share, and so, and that's what was funny about me writing the book too, is that I had this interesting background where it's I'm a random banker and I wrote this fantasy book, but no, it's really been a great experience to write it. And it's just I just think it's funny where it comes from. So it's like, and I just like, but it's always a quirky convo because I think people think I'm endorsing NFTs and I'm not. It was just more of like, can you actually make one? Could I actually make one?
Yeah.
That was kind of my thing. Like, is it hard to make it? Like, could you make it?
Yeah.
And the fact that I taught it myself within a day, let me know how probably not valuable they were. Right. So the more difficult to create, that was kind of code for value, I guess. So.
Yeah. Well, lots of good stuff came out of the COVID years. Did you get a lot of time to write it during COVID, or what's your writing schedule that you keep for authors out there that want to write?
It's definitely tough because you are going to need some alone time to write. With my note about my kids, I do a lot with them, with sports, things like that, with my dog. And it's really difficult to get alone because you want to be alone and have your own thoughts when you write. And you kind of can get lost into your book. So you just got to find a solid place to write, whether you got a quiet spot in your house and just some time. My way of doing it always worked for me was getting up earlier than everybody else because everybody else sleeps in. You get up around 8:30, 9 o'clock. Got an hour or two to kind of put together some ideas. Yeah. Also, like putting a board together, that really helped me. Kind of having something up with Post-it notes of ideas and kind of like, how do I get to that idea? That helped a lot too.
The mornings are good because the kids are still strapped down in the duct tape. Can't quite speak or run around the house yet. I keep mine in those crates for the dogs. So
the kids get to sleep past, at 10, 11 o'clock. It must be nice. I mean, I remember those days too, but 11 now you feel like you wasted the whole day.
Yeah.
So.
That or just put the kids up for adoption. Get, Ted Kaczynski seemed to do pretty good writing in the cabin in the middle of the woods. So
Right. Now that's an example of someone who had a ton of time on their hands, right?
Yeah. Ransom notes. Wasn't there a movie about a joke about the most profitable writing is ransom notes or something?
That's actually kind of funny. I never thought about that.
I think that was from the big John Travolta and stuff, but they were, it's kind of a movie joking about Hollywood. So what's the future? Is there a pending second book that's on the docket yet with the release date?
Yeah, so I don't have a release date yet, but there's the first chapters at the end of the first book, so you kind of get a taste of walking where it's going. That is in process now. Man, I'd hate to give a date and miss it, but I'd like to have it by the end of the year. I'll just say that's kind of my goal.
Yeah, 2026. And any future book signings or any consulting, coaching, anything you do maybe on your website, the services you help other people?
The book will actually be displayed at the London Book Fair on March 11th through the 12th. So if you're there, you can go in and get a peek at it, kind of take a look and learn more about it. There'll be someone there representing it to tell you about it. As far as like a website, there's some other things we're creating with it right now. There's a whole universe we're creating, an interactive game that we're working on as well. My goal is to actually have that live prior to the next book, just because it actually opens the door up to a whole new like audience for the book, and they can interact. They can actually interact with the world and get more of a feeling of what Chromaria really is.
And it looks kind of on the cover of the book, it looks kind of elfish looking. I don't want to, lock in your character there. So would you kind of say maybe a Tolkien sort of fantasy world, or maybe what's that? Who's that guy who did the movie Titanic? He's got that one group of people that are the avatars or whatever they're called.
Oh, yeah, like Avatar. Yeah, I'd say there is a fantasy aspect of it because there is some things in the book that you would need some sort of magical advantages to conduct. Yeah, I do like that it's somewhat complex to answer, but I would say it leans more on the fantasy side, definitely. More on like the hero villain fantasy.
Oh, hero villain fantasy and lots of different variations. Now, are these tribal people, are they all the same sort of race like elves or whatever race you've set up for them, or are they kind of different, like they may have different shapes and forms?
They're the same, but they actually just have different attributes about them. So with the light tribe, they're the ones that deal with seasons and changing and being able to help other tribes and throughout their creation, since they're selected first. For example, their philosophy is they're selected first, but they aren't first. So they always help everybody else first. It's like one of the catch of being the first is to try to control the I guess what I'd say is more like the arrogance of being first. That'll be a challenge they'll have to control, right? As far as like water, there's a dynamic where that's the Blue Tribe is the second book. So we'll go into that about how the Water Tribe works together, how there's kind of another separate path that I'd like to take in that book as far as personalities wise, and just in that specific tribe. So the Orange Tribe works with building the castles. They deal with the earth. I think the funniest one to me that I like and I really enjoy when people read about one is the Indigo Tribe. Is they're the musical and entertainment group, and you can't actually talk to them. You can only sing to them. So it's the only way to actually communicate with them. And so I just think I just like that idea. I just would want to see that. That's why I'm so excited about the interactive game to see who actually would select to be in there, and then see what they would do with their character.
What now? The game is it going to be a video game, or is it going to be an app like on the phones there?
It's a video game, and personally, that is even more difficult to gauge a launch because and again, that's a new area that I've entered working with, where you open a new door that you think is going to be quick. You're like, oh, we just got to make music. And then the music takes like 2 weeks. And you're like, that took 2 weeks just to make the music. And it's like, and you create something that impacts this code, and you got to go back. And hats off to all the people who've made all these video games. It's really given me a huge respect for what it takes to put together masterpieces that I've seen in my life for video games. I can't believe how much these games have to do to get everything right.
Oh, it's crazy. And like you say, you change one line of code and you break everything.
Right. You end up messing something up that you did 8 steps ago, and then you got to go back through everything to find it. So, but it's really cool watching that kind of create itself.
Yeah.
But again, it's difficult to pick a launch date. I actually thought it'd be done. That's how kind of new to the game I was. I was like, this should just be pretty easy to put together. But the further you go down in developing and adding dynamics to a game, it's a lot longer than you think.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Even like Bungie, I remember I was a big Destiny player back in the day, and Bungie has this tower that you land into to interact with different NPC characters. And for like 6 months, it broke, and you couldn't fly into the front position. You had to go to the back. It was like really stupid. You'd log in and just go black screen on you, and you'd hear stuff, but you couldn't do anything. And it turns out somebody added a code for a pot, like a little pot or plate, just for decorations, and they broke the game. It took them 6 months to find it and fix it.
Exactly.
And they're a huge company. They got thousands of coders and employees. So, if they're having troubles, it's a challenging space.
It's interesting. You look at a game like Ocarina of Time. It came out in the 90s for like Zelda. And I read that they put the music together in like a week or two, and like literally every TikTok it's like there's that song playing in it. And it's funny. These guys just whip through and make the music, and it's timeless for 30 years. And then like I go into it, I'm like, well, it needs music for this, this, and this. And it's like, it's this huge endeavor. So yeah, you can go down some rabbit holes when it comes to video games for sure.
Some money pit rabbit holes. So what do you hope people come away with when they read the book? You kind of mentioned that it's, they're kind of designed or have a thing to try and work together.
I think what I'd like people to see most is when faced with adversity, you're brave enough to make the right decision. And I think that's something to learn as far as when it comes to coming of age, group reading a book, going through a traumatic event, which direction do you take? And when you've reached a climatic moment of facing, whether it's your greatest fear, what do you do? Do you take the side of, of like selfishness and, how does it benefit me? Or do you do a selfless act for everybody, for your tribe, for the world? And I just think that deeply thinking about it from that perspective is actually a breath of fresh air when it comes to reading and storytelling today. So I'd love to get back to that. It's the stuff I look back in my past as things I've read when I was younger or watched when I was younger that, really moved me.
Yeah. I was a big Tolkien fan when I was a kid. I love that stuff when I was like 11. And what was it? Shannara? The Sword of Shannara? Yeah. I and you know, those sort of books, the fantasy books, and it was just so great for your imagination because it, you know, you create another world, you know, because this one's not so great these days.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the thing that about imagination is I joke about being able to just sit somewhere. Can you go into a dentist appointment without your phone and just sit there? It's kind of my superpower.
Oh.
And I joke with my kids, I can just sit there, and you had to kind of stare out the window in a car. You couldn't just stare at your phone. And so by going back into your imagination, it just really gives me hope to say anybody could go into their own imagination, and we could have more compelling stories, you know, that actually kind of indirectly teach us what would be the right decision, or how you would look at how you would make a decision when faced with adversity.
Yeah, yeah. And the reading is so great for young people, folks. Read to people, and parents should read to people too. We advocate for that a lot on the show. You know, don't just give them the little computer screens and let that babysit them. You know, the reading and imagination, like you talked about, is so important for childhood development. And it makes for great entrepreneurs too, being able to imagine what the world could be as opposed to what it is. You know, people like Steve Jobs and the people saw certain things and went, there's a better way to do this, maybe. And that's the great thing about being an entrepreneur too, as well. So I'm glad you found your voice. I'm glad you found your authorship. And, you know, it's interesting. So many of the guests that we have on the show, I mean, 2,000 shows now, we have these authors that, you know, they go through sometimes cathartic moments, lose a job, COVID, you know, they do, you know, all things throughout their life. And then kind of they reach a point where like, what do I really like to do? Or, you know, I love to write, you know, let's write a book. And it's just so great that there's the opportunities out there that people can take and do that. So thank you very much for coming to the show. Give people your final pitch out and .com where people can find you on the interwebs.
Thanks so much for having me. If you just Google Chromaria, you'll source the book. You can order it on Amazon. If you happen to be in the UK, definitely take a look at the book fair. It's a hidden gem with a great message. There's additional books to come. And keep an eye out for the video game. I'd love for you to come join me in the game.
Folks, pick up the books wherever fine books are sold. Chromaria. It's out on wherever you can find stuff like Amazon. And there'll be a link on the Chris Voss Show. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss1 on the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.
All right, Clayton, we're out. Great show.